So we're going to open up Keynote by double clicking that icon as you would any other application. You're going to see a window pop up saying, hey, we can open up a previous presentation you've done before, but we're going to click New Document. So we're going to start from scratch here. So when you click that, you see a window come up showing you all the different themes available to you. This is a great way to get started with doing a presentation. Is just use one of the preset themes. Apple's created some really nice themes here, and a lot of them are very minimal. So there's some dynamic themes that have motion in the background, and that motion can be tweaked and then edited so that it's even more subtle than it already is. But those are really nice themes. As you scroll down, you'll see some other themes here: bold, editorial, and so on. Also, we won't get into this today, but you actually can create your own themes. So there's a section for My Themes. If you created some and saved them as themes, or if you download some themes that you found somewhere else, that's where you would see those. We won't dive into creating your own themes today, but so let's go ahead and choose one of these. We're going to choose Color Gradient Light here. And so now we've got our main Keynote window. And I always recommend that you go ahead and save when you start out. And let's take a look at the different toolbars and the tools that are available to you here. So first of all, on the left side, this sidebar here has a few different things you could see, but typically what you're going to see is slide thumbnails. So each of these squares would be one slide, and as you create new slides, they'll start to be listed down the left side here. What's nice about this is you've got, when you right click on this, you can take action on these slides. And so there's a couple things I use pretty regularly, and one is if I just need a new slide, pops it in here. If I wanted to skip a slide in a presentation, say I created one, but later I realize really probably could just skip that slide. Right click, hit skip, and the presentation slide will still be there, but it won't show up in your presentation. And then you can also duplicate. Duplicate is something that you're probably going to use quite a bit there when you right click on these thumbnails. So that's the thumbnails. Along the top, you can see a toolbar here with a number of things that are going to be useful to you. The first thing though is it gives you some other options for this left sidebar. Get rid of it completely, hide it completely, I mean. Show your slides as a light table with all the different slides lined up on the screen. I generally am going to stick to Navigator every time, so I want to see those thumbnails. Other options in this menu: show rulers. Actually, I skipped one. I'll come back to the other. Show rulers. I have rulers on all the time just to give me a point of reference of how many pixels across the screen I'm looking at. But also, whenever you're creating a slide that has some different objects on it, let's go back to this one here, and you need some guidelines in terms of keeping things straight or just a visual cue for yourself, you can click on the ruler and then drag, and it creates a guideline. So that guideline will not be visible in the presentation. It's just there while you are building. And you can have a few of these on the screen to help you line some things up. I find that incredibly useful. I use it also in Apple Pages. But the rulers also provide some good point of reference for you as you're laying things out. Also on this, you have presenter notes. So as I show you this, understand that if you put some notes in here, this is useless if you have to mirror your screen during your presentation. So this will only show up when you extend your screen, because what happens is then you've got basically an extra monitor view. That's where your presentation goes. On your main screen, your laptop, you will see your notes, and it gives you a guide along the way as you're going from slide to slide. No one else sees these but you, because on the main screen, they're just seeing the presentation portion. So that's where you would open up presenter notes there. Last thing I'll mention is the show object list here. And the point of this is just to lay out every single object on the slide and show you which is on top. In other words, which thing will be in front of everything else. That's the object that's listed on the top. And so that can be useful at times when you've got a lot of objects on the screen. Let's go ahead and hide that. The next one is the zoom. And this is just showing you, how zoomed in you are or zoomed out. And you can fit so that it just fits the screen. And then another place where you can add a slide, and we'll come back to adding slides. You have the play button here when you're ready to play your presentation. If you want to insert, there's a lot of different things to insert here. A table, and it gives you some options to do that, along with some themes there. If you want to insert a chart, there are a few different kinds of charts that you can enter, and then decide on what kind of theme you want. I'd like a pie graph there, and then you can fill in the data by editing the chart data here, and those can be resized, moved around, and so on. Your text box also here, if you want to enter, you're going to be doing this a lot, entering new text on the screen, and you would edit that here. And if you want to enter a shape, is the next button. There are a lot of different shapes here, and you can search. Let's just look for globe. A lot of different globes here. So if I want just something showing the Americas here, you could place that on the page, and that's where you would do that. And these can be changed in terms of their color. They are monochrome, but you can resize them or change the color. And you can enter other media as well. You can insert your own photos or videos that you've got, music, an image gallery, web video. You can record some audio that would play, and even live video, very interesting, or any document or a file of any kind that you could choose to access. So finally, there's some comments here. I don't use comments on my presentations. That's not something I've used ever in Keynote, but it is there in case you wanted to look at that. The share button is the same in Pages, Keynote, Numbers. When you click on share, you can choose to share it collaboratively to where the other person gets a link. You have to have iCloud to do that, and the document will have to be saved in iCloud. But once you do that, you can share it with them. They can collaborate with you, and you can work together on a presentation. And so that's the share button where you do that. Or you could just send them a copy as well. Now, on the right side, this right side toolbar, this is going to change depending on what you have selected on the screen. In fact, let's go back to our globe. I just want to put this in here. And I don't have it selected right now, okay, but now I do. And you see that the menu changes, the sidebar changes over here, this toolbar. And it went to show me some colors, fill colors, border. So let's just go ahead and we'll choose one of the shape styles that are already here. If you click through, you can add your own, but I'm going to choose blue, and I'll just add a border there. You can see that changed that object. Now, once I click away from that object, now it's showing me formatting options for the entire slide. I just clicked on the slide. So it all depends on what you have selected. So just to walk through some of the formatting options, we'll start with the slide format options. You can change the fill color on these to what you want. And then you can also change the background to a more dynamic background. I was showing you that in the themes. Some of these have dynamic backgrounds like this, and you can slow down the speed on the motion so nobody gets seasick, change how the shapes are formed, and I mean it's really interesting. I've actually used this and really slowed it down. It's almost like you barely notice it, but it just makes it a little more interesting visually. Now I waited on this till last because I think it's pretty important that you understand when you have the slide selected, you can change the layout here. And so if you're not happy with the title layout you've got, and you thought, why did I do that? I'm actually just presenting a big fact, a percentage, and then a fact. I'm just going to change that layout, and you can change. There it is. And so that's where you change the layout. Now the next button here, so that's all the formatting, including, I didn't mention this, I should say this though. If you select a text box or select text, you have styles that will apply to the text, and then just click the text area of the formatting, and that's where you would find your different fonts and bold, italics, and all the different styles for characters. And then the alignment, you've got your alignment, is it a left side, center, or what about vertically? Then you've got line spacing, bullets, and so on, like any typical text editing. Now let's move to the next option over on this right side, and that's animate. So this is where you can animate specific objects as they come into the slide or as they leave the slide. Now, right now you see, we don't have any objects selected, and it says you want to add a transition effect. And so what that means is you can see the help text there. We're choosing the transition that we want to appear as it goes to the next slide. So that's because nothing is selected, just the slide is selected. But when I choose an object, now it gives me other options. It says, okay, add a transition effect and animation if you want it to build whenever it builds in. Or you can create an animation effect that's just an action, like it moves or the opacity is changed. And then animation for building it out. So whenever the object moves off of the screen, you can set how it does that. So we'll get into that shortly. The final option over here on the right side is for document settings that you can change. You can change the entire theme here by clicking change theme and then go in and choose a different one and then hit choose. We won't do that now. And then decide whether or not you want to keep the style changes that you've made to fonts and things like that. So I've done that before, and you've got to remember to click keep your style changes if you like the fonts that you specifically chose while you were working on it. There's slideshow settings here, like, okay, automatically play when the slideshow opens. There are use cases for that. Loop the slideshow. If you've got something that has a lot of animation where it's playing automatically and just goes through all the different slides, you would use that. And there's presentation type, self-playing, links only, all of this. So there are really some interesting use cases for all of this. Slide size, when I didn't mention this in the theme chooser. So in fact, let's look at that real quick. When we hit new and we chose a theme here, there's a drop down here for wide or standard. So it just gives you two options when you're choosing a theme at the beginning. However, once you're in the presentation, you have a lot of options, and you can choose a custom slide size. So if you have a very specific situation where you need it to be a certain number or a certain height and width, you can set that here and make it custom. And then there's password protection on this side as well. There are audio options under here as well if you want to record the slideshow, and there's some things you can do with that. Well, that's a little more advanced. We won't get into that in this video. So now I just want to show you how I would create a simple presentation using Keynote and add a couple animations and a couple changes to slides. But whenever you're ready to add a new slide, you click Add Slide, and you can choose any of the different slide types that are there. And so usually there's one for title and photo, and I prefer that. So I'm going to click title and photo, and it put it underneath there. So I'm going to just slide that up, move it to the top, and I'm going to choose my own picture here. And so I'm going to choose the image and hit Insert. That replaces the previous image there. Now I do want a title on this. I'm going to click the text box there, and then I'm going to hold down Command and click the next one, and then I'm going to do the same and click that third one. because I just want to change, I want to format the title to be on the left side for this particular title screen. So I want to change the font now of this first text box. And I'm going to select it and then go to the top here. There we go. And then I want to make that a little bigger. So I'm going to go over to the text, the font area. So remember, I'm in the formatting sidebar. I've got text selected. And then down here, I'm choosing all my options. So I'm going to change that to 150. And then here, I'm fine with that font and this. So now I just want to move this one and hold down Command, this one, and slide them down a little bit. In fact, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to just get rid of this third one. Let's just do that. I'm going to move these down here to the bottom left. And let's title this, we'll say this is a presentation on caring for the environment. Okay. 5 ways we can help. I don't know. Don't turn this in for a grade. I'm just doing an example. So, caring for the environment. So whenever I'm doing a presentation like this, as much as I can, I try to use images in the background. And one interesting thing you can do as you get ready to head to the next slide is have a transition to where this image actually changes. And so I want to show you that animation. So I'm going to click on slide 1, and then I'm going to hit duplicate. What I'm going to do is I want my title to disappear as it goes to slide number 2. So I'm going to select the title and hit delete. But I'm also going to change this image. And so that when it gets to slide 2, I want it to fade to a monochrome look. And so I've got the image selected. I'm under formatting. I'm going to choose image. And then I'm going to go here to the settings for the image. I'm going to take the exposure, oops, not the exposure, sorry. I'm going to change the saturation all the way down. So it's like a black and white image. Now, select the first slide in the thumbnail and choose animate. And now we're going to choose an effect for the entire slide transition, not any singular object. I want to change this to Magic Move. Now, Magic Move looks for duplicate objects on the next slide and how they've changed. And so I'm going to click Magic Move, and you'll see, and it gives you the first time you'd use this, Magic Move animates objects from this slide to their positions on the next. But it's not just position, but also appearance and everything. So I'm going to click OK here. And you can see it gives you a preview. In fact, let's just play the presentation. And when I click the arrow to go to the next slide, the image goes to that monochrome look. And that's a gradual thing, so it's a really nice transition. Use Magic Move as often as you can. Don't go too crazy with it, but you know, if you also had text like this one, in fact, let's go ahead and put this back. I'm going to copy this text, put it on this slide. But I'm going to make the formatting of it. I'm going to go back up to Format, Text. I'm going to make this text a lot smaller. Let's just do that. And we can change the size of these little text boxes here. And let's just say we want that just to be a little footer on every slide, maybe way over here. And even just say we want it to have reduced opacity, like where you can't see it quite as well. Choose the color, the opacity, I'll take that down there, and you can see it sort of faded. Now it's not as noticeable, but it's still there as this little footer on the second slide. Now, we have the Magic Move. You see that little blue corner there? We have that set up as our animation between slides. So now what it'll do is it'll take this text and move it over here and fade it, while the image also goes to black and white. So we'll go ahead and hit play. And so that's a really nice way to move from one slide to the next. Now, if I wanted to use this backdrop as the backdrop for my text, it's too detailed. It needs to be either blurred or something. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this again. You can just hit Command D, or like we did before, right click and hit duplicate. So I'm going to select this image here for this third slide and go to Style. So we're under Format, Style, and I'm going to change the opacity here. So the image will still be there, but I can lay some text over this. And so when I enter a text box here, I can move it, turn that into a bullet point. Now, how do you, and some folks love to create bullet points on their PowerPoint presentations. I recommend you use as little text as possible on presentations. Present an idea and then you elaborate. That's just a free tip for doing presentations. I don't recommend putting a ton of text on the screen. People don't remember. Give that to them in a handout. They're not going to remember 5 sentences on a slide. You want to have it as simple as possible. So often I will have a piece of information right in the middle of the screen. It's just one thing. And it's just much more effective as far as helping people remember things, and, you know, instead of having them try to absorb a lot of detail on the screen, they're listening to you while you have the supporting idea or something behind you. In fact, let's just change this slide to the big fact theme. And I'll take my picture. I'm going to right click. I'm going to copy this picture we have as our background here. I'm going to put it here. So when I drop in that picture, I want to right click on it and send to back. And now that image is in the background. I've got my fact here. I'm going to put this in 8 million tons. Let's say for my presentation, I just put in 8 million tons, but I don't say anything else about it. They're going to wonder, what is 8 million tons? And only when you tell them in the presentation that that's how many tons of plastic ends up in the oceans every year, oh, now that had an impact. Instead of having a couple sentences about it, you just put something like this on the screen. Now that's a presentation that's going to leave a mark. It's going to help them remember what you said. And so, you know, we can have this right here. This is text. This can be edited so that the text looks different. You've got a gradient fill here. We could change it just to a normal text color. We can change those colors. Maybe we don't like that specific color design or whatever. I'm no graphic designer, but we could do that. And animate this text also when it comes in. So I've got the text selected, and now I'm going to click animate, animate, and build in. So when this builds in, I want it to slam down onto the slide itself. And the way you would do that, there's one called Anvil. Let's preview that. That's a perfect animation for that statistic. They don't know what I mean until I describe it, but 8 million tons is a lot, and that's heavy. So when it comes in on the screen, I want that thing to really drop. Okay. So that's how you would animate that text as it comes in. Now you can also animate this text on its way out as well under build out. So if you wanted to say, I just want it to fade and move out, you could do that. We're going to leave that. Well, let's just leave it there. But the thing I want to highlight here also is that you can create an action for text or an object. Let's bring in an object actually for this. Let's bring in the globe. And let's make this larger. And we'll change the color of it. So format, style. There we go. So format, style. And we'll just change this to green. Let's just go there. So I've got an object here and I've got text. If you wanted to animate an object or text on the screen, go to animate. When I say animate, I mean like not just have it build in, but also have the object change in some way while it's on the screen. You're just going to click animate, action, and then add an effect. And so there's a few different things you can do. There's, emphasis like blink, things like this. But the ones I use the most are going to be move, so it'll move around. So I click move. And once it does that, it shows you the red line of what's the path it's going to take. If I can't think of why I would do this, but if I wanted this thing to end up down here, I could do that. But the path is straight. Well, let's move the path so that it's like a curved path. Now, when it moves, it's going to go around like this. Now, so those are all the animations. That's the way to set up an animation. But there's something you have to understand when you are building an animation. I wish Apple would take a very important button down here at the bottom right and put that more prominent. This is going to be incredibly useful to you when you are building out a slide that perhaps has a few different things that move around a little bit. Click build order to see what order these animations will happen. So we have the 8 million tons. It's going to drop in with the anvil effect. That's the first thing that'll happen. And down here it says it will happen on click. Now, I could also have that happen after the transition automatically after, let's say, a delay of 3 seconds. The next thing that's going to happen is number 2 here. You click that and you see that statistic building out on click. Well, we've got this globe animation. We actually want that to be first before our statistic goes away off the screen. So I'm going to move that. And now I can see that animation happens on click. But what if I want it to just build with animation 1 for some reason? It will connect, and when 8 million tons comes in, America's globe here, this will move at the same time. And then finally, on its own, you click this last animation. That's the one that builds out. It fades and moves off the screen. That will only happen after you click because we have that selected here. So let's take a look at what this looks like on the screen when we animate it. So I'm going to click play right up here on your toolbar. And I'm going to wait, and there it goes. So it waited for the 3 seconds. The text came in with the effect, and the globe moved at the same time like we wanted it to. Now, when we click the arrow, what's going to happen is that text, as we instructed, it's going to fade and move off the screen, but the globe is not going to move. We didn't tell it to go anywhere. Okay, so that's how you build out your animations, and then control what order they move in. So don't forget about this build order button down here. You're going to need that. Very useful. So if you did end up wanting to animate bullet points, again, not a great way to do slides, but sometimes you just feel like you got to do it. If you've got bullet points here and you write them out, let's show a little bit of animation here. Okay, that's fine. So in animating just the bullet points here, let's click on the bullet points, hit add an effect, and then you have to choose the animation that you want on your build-in effect. See, we've got animation, build-in, add an effect. And you could choose one. Let's just do fade and scale. So that brings all of your bullet points in all at once. But you can also decide, I want these to come in by bullet. There's also bullet group, by highlighted bullet. And highlighted bullet's one that's, if you're going to use bullets, I think this is probably the one to use, because what happens is when you hit play and you bring in your first bullet, it comes in. When the second one comes in and finishes its animation, it sort of fades the last one. And then the third point comes in and it will fade the first two. So it really brings the focus in on that particular bullet point. So that's one I'd recommend you use if you're going to have a bulleted list of some kind on a presentation. Now, all of these different effects are going to have different kinds of options. Your duration here, that's how long the effect takes. So you don't want this to be long. These should be pretty short. So they come in pretty quickly, actually. So that's bullet point animation. Same thing with bullet points. Make sure you've got your build order how you want it. Some things you want just to come in automatically after a previous build. Some things you want to start with a click, but you can do all that there. So there's a simple walkthrough of the basics of Apple Keynote and how you can get started creating your own great presentations. I'm going to do a separate video on more advanced features like editing slide layouts and different things like that. But this is enough definitely to get you started and perhaps present using Apple Keynote for the first time. Click that like and subscribe button if you haven't already. I really appreciate you watching. We'll see you on the next one.